Bachelor of Arts in Education, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I have, I think it's about 28 questions for you.
Oh my goodness, that's gonna take.
I don't think it will take.
Okay, well I'm
But
a
I mean-
long-winded person. That's the
Oh.
problem. 28 questions be 2 hours.
My first question is,
Mm-hmm.
why did you decide to pursue your doctoral degree?
My doctorate degree is in psychology, and when I graduated from Bennett College in 1969, I knew and was told by our professors that you cannot be a psychologist with an undergraduate degree. That is not happening. And if you truly want to be a psychologist, you have to get an advanced degree, master's and PhD. So he kind of groomed us. His name was Dr. Grandison at Bennett, head of the psych department. He groomed us from the time we were freshmen to let us know the path that we would need to take if we were serious about being a psychologist. He not only told us, but he put us in summer programs. I know the summer between my sophomore and junior year, he sent us to Howard University to take summer courses in psychology, so that we would disabuse ourselves of any notion that graduate school was not for us, that we could do that as well. So, and coming back from that experience, most of us started making applications to graduate schools and getting scholarships and all, because he put us on that path.
Secondly, what challenges, if any at all, did you experience during your course phase of your doctoral degree?
Actually, I have to tell you, I was a little disappointed in the program because I thought it was going to be harder than what it was.
Oh.
I really did, coming from an all-girls black college, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I can't compete. I'm not gonna be as prepared as those more advantaged and privileged students going to the Big Ten, University of Michigan. So I went there with that expectation. Then I got there and I discovered that their philosophy was at that time that if you were accepted into their PhD program, because they didn't have a terminal master's program, you had to be accepted into the PhD program, even though along the way you could, if you stopped, you could get a master's degree.
Yes.
But they felt like if you were accepted into their PhD program, you had already proven yourself. And you didn't have to come there and let them take you through hoop after hoop after hoop to prove that you were worthy and that you qualified, you were a quality candidate for a PhD. That was their approach, and I didn't know that. Nobody told me that, but when I got there, I discovered that is how it goes.
How did you address these? Well, you already explained how you address these challenges.
Well, as I came to understand what was happening here, and it wasn't as difficult as I had imagined it would be, I just fell in line with that.
Okay.
So I followed the pattern that everybody else followed at that point.
Okay.
What was hard was the doctoral thesis. That was a challenge to behold.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that I was completely on my own. I didn't have any classes to go to, people to guide my studies and take tests and all that. It was completely you were independent to make that happen. So you had to develop some kind of discipline of your own. And that was a challenge to me.
Beginning the dissertation, please describe the transition from the coursework stage of your doctoral degree to the dissertation stage.
So when the courses were done, like I said, I was on my own to to get my committee, write my chapters, do my research, keep going back and forth to the committee. So nobody was waking me up in the morning saying, go to class, do this and the third. I had to wake myself up and put myself on a schedule and on a plan to get it done. So that was a challenge, and that was a transition. Once I got it through my brain that I'm not going to get this degree unless I get up off my behind and get the work done on a regular basis, that's when I went into work. That's when I got myself together to do it.
How did you select your dissertation topic and method?
My dissertation topic was coming from Rosenthal's. Boy, I haven't thought about this in like 100 years, man. You should have given me a little advance warning. I thought you would talk about, what I know and what I do now. But Rosenthal's theory of the self-fulfilling prophecy was intriguing to me. And it is that whatever your expectations are, you rise or people rise to the level of what those expectations are for them. So that interested me as I was studying in psychology. So when it came time to do my dissertation, I thought that I'd like to know more about how race of the teacher in education, race of the teacher and race of the student played in terms of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the research that I did was to get a relationship with the school, interview the teachers that agreed to be in the study, find out what their expectations were for their class of students. So there was a seating chart, and you had these students seated there. Some were black, some were white kids. Some teachers were black, some teachers were white. And I just asked them what was what described describe the kid, in terms of his achievement level. So they would indicate that it was that child was a high performing student, that was a low performing student in that kind of frame. So I had that baseline, and then I forget the name of the research design that we used, but it was every 3 seconds you were recording, checking the interaction that the teacher had with the student. Was it positive? Was it negative? How much time did they give a kid to answer a question? The wait time, all of that dynamic of teacher-student interaction. And I had to train myself to do that every 3 seconds without fail, because that's how we collected the data. What I found was that for students that the teacher had a high regard for and had the expectation that this was a good student and a bright student, she gave more wait time. If she asked a question, Johnny, what is this, that, or the third? She gave him more wait time to come up with the answer, because she expected him to come up with the answer.
Right.
For kids that she thought were not sufficient in that regard, she would ask the question, but she wouldn't give as much wait time. And I found that there was a correlation between the expectation of the kid as well as the race of the kid. So as it turns out, the teacher had lower expectations for the kids of color than she had for the Caucasian kids, and it showed up in the data.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. What advice do you have for doctoral students with regards to choosing a topic and method?
Something that they have a real passion and an interest in, not because it's easy, not because anything like that, but just, is this something you care about?
Right.
If it's something you care about, you can pursue it.
Chair and committee.
Yeah.
Please describe how you identify your dissertation chair and committee.
Well, they were instructors that I had come in contact with, and I chose, his name is James Jackson, to be the chair. I had a better relationship with him. I was a little more comfortable with him. He was an African American professor too, and that made some sense to me and made a difference.
Okay.
So I just chose someone that I was comfortable with, that I had a good relationship with, that I knew was in my corner and would be supportive of me and would help me along the way, and that's exactly what he did.
Please describe your relationship with your chair, committee, and committee members during your dissertation and your relationship with them now.
I got my PhD in 1975, sir.
Wow.
This is 2019, 2020. I have no idea where those rascals are. I have no connection with them.
Okay.
In fact, I confess that I get a lot of mail from the University of Michigan as an alum,
Wow.
and I have been there once or twice in the early days
Wow.
to the, especially the African American alums who have, not a homecoming, but they have a gathering just like any other school and any other graduate does. But I've only been to a couple, and that was years ago. So it's just different.
Wow.
So I was there on that purpose, and that was the only thing I was there for. And then when I left, I kind of left it behind, though I loved it while I was there, just by the way.
What advice do you have for doctoral students with regards to selecting and working with a chair and committee?
Select someone you have a good relationship with, not someone who just has the name and the title and they've done a lot of research in the area you're doing the research in. That is a factor.
Right.
That is a factor, but that you wouldn't necessarily choose that person as your chair. It has to be somebody you have a good relationship with.
Right.
You know, it's no longer at this level, at that level,
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer teacher-student.
Okay.
You're not looking at them as, oh, that's my teacher, and no, man, you're colleagues at this point.
There you go.
You're not. You're on a even keel. You're on a par with these professors.
Right.
They're your colleagues. They look at you as their colleagues.
Right.
So it has to be where you have a good relationship with them.
Right. Shifting mindset.
I would say so too. But that's what I was saying about the University of Michigan. The moment you get into their PhD program, they treat you as colleagues.
Right.
They don't treat you as though that student, no, you fraternize, socialize, have events together, and that's the relationship. That's how it was at Michigan now.
Right.
I don't know how it is anywhere else, but I do know that's how it was at Michigan. So that it was a level playing field
Right.
from the time you got there. Once you realized that, that's how you interacted with them.
Okay.
And that's how they interact with you.
Okay.
They're looking for some talent that can work with them on their research projects. When they're looking at you, they're not looking at you as a student to give a grade to.
Right.
They're looking at what talent you have, what interests you have, and we can be colleagues on the same research team. Can you join our research team? As soon as you get there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little different perhaps, but it was quite.
Dissertation proposal. Please describe your experience in the proposal development stage of your dissertation.
I told the chair what I was interested in, and he helped me develop it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't have a full out developed dissertation proposal when we first met,
Right.
when we first started working together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked,
Right.
and he shaped and guided my thinking along the way. All I knew was what I was interested in my dissertation chair molded me and helped me develop a proper research paper, dissertation thesis, and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I just came in with the idea of what I was interested in, and he helped shape me. I'm nowhere in the world am I telling you he did that for me.
Right.
No way.
Right.
We dialogued, and he gave me ideas. He pointed out the research that I could look at, this, that, and the third. So that's what it was.
Okay. What challenges did you face while developing your proposal, and how do you address them?
I said the challenge was in my own self-discipline. That
Okay.
clearly was what it was. So getting into the library, doing the research, taking notes, and studying the research over and over and over again, all the research that was available. You had to be very fluent in the research behind the topic or the thesis that you're writing on.
Right.
You know, you can't just look at one or two items and look at Rosenthal's work and that's it. You had to look at all the work that was done concerning the self-fulfilling prophecy, whether it directly related to your topic or it was a bit, you know, because I'm bringing race into the mix of this, how that impacts student achievement using the self-fulfilling prophecy model. So that was it for me. I would just, if you ask me that another or two or three more different ways, I'm going to say that the challenge for me in getting the work done was the self-discipline that I needed to do the work, to do it thoroughly, analyzing the data, all of that. Those steps, they have to be done, and they can only be done by you, and no one is going to say you need to go do this, you need to go do that. It's completely initiation by fire for me. I'm not the most disciplined person in the world, and it taught me that.
Okay. Please describe your experiences applying Institutional Review Board (IRB's) approval to conduct your research.
That was a committee. I'm not familiar with that institutional review board phrase that you're using, but I couldn't go forward with the research until the committee said so.
Okay.
So whatever they needed whatever more they needed me to do, I had to do those things before I got the go-ahead to collect the data to do the research.
What advice do you have with regard to the IRB? You say you're not really
Well, to the
committee?
well, I've already given that you
Right.
have a good relationship with the chair, because the chair is the influencer on the other members of your committee. So, and then the advice that I can say is that, they're there to help you most of the time. I've heard horror stories about people who were standing in your way of you getting that dissertation done. I didn't hear that at Michigan, but I've heard that with some other PhD colleagues that I've come to know here. Yeah, they can get in the way, and there could be a hostile and adversarial relationship going on, but that did not happen with me. It was not. But now I was careful to do what they asked me to do. I didn't give them any pushback. I mean, we had a dialogue about certain things and explaining why I was doing it that way, or why I said this in the chapter, and that kind of thing. But it was never hostile or adversarial. So I was prepared to do everything that they asked me to do, and to move along, steadily to get to the end of the journey.
Okay. Data collection and analysis. If applicable, please describe your experiences collecting and analyzing data for your dissertation.
It was the biggest thing was getting so the data collecting instrument that I use. I can't call the name of it now, but it was Flanders Interaction Analysis. Hallelujah! Listen at that. I'm 72.
Wow.
It's been a heck of a long time. I was 20 something during this time, because I went straight from Bennett College to graduate school the same month that I graduated. I graduated in 1969 from Bennett College. I probably was 21. I was 21. I went straight to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, the same month that I graduated. So, and then it took me 4 years to get that PhD. So what was I, 25 when I got that PhD? So, but Flanders interaction analysis. Hallelujah. I'm proud of myself for remembering that.
That's awesome.
And so the biggest thing to your question, the biggest thing was getting up to speed, because you had to do it accurately every 3 seconds. Now you're checking, because you're mainly just listening. You're not really looking at the teacher, because every 3 seconds you're checking. You have to just glance up there and see, but you're just listening, because you're listening for the interaction. Like I said, the wait time was pretty big as an indication of I don't expect this student to know the answer, so I don't give you but a couple of seconds to answer the question. But if I expect this other student to know the answer, I wait, because it's coming, So I'm checking, and 3 seconds, nothing, no response or whatever. So it was getting up to speed on being efficient in using that interaction analysis.
Final defense and summary. Final defense. Please describe how you prepared for your final defense.
Well, I reviewed my dissertation and was very familiar with the content of the dissertation, the hypothesis. You've been working with this thing forever, it seems like. But the final defense, I think I recall being a little nervous about it. They might throw a ringer in there, that I'm not expecting or not prepared for. I'm not quite sure how it's going to go. And I know that I don't get the stamp of approval unless it goes well and the way that they're expecting it. But all along, they're coaching you. They're helping you know how to prepare and all of that. But I do recall being quite nervous about it. And the thing that I could only do to prepare for is to be extremely familiar with the whole process, my data especially, and I also needed to be able to propose alternative hypotheses or explanations to what I got, especially if it didn't line up with my hypothesis and my idea. I had to be able to talk beyond the paper or beyond the data. I had to be able to broaden my ability to talk about the research and what happened in my case, and extrapolate that to probably other research that would be consistent with what I got. It's just a conversation now. It's more of a conversation now. So I had to know the data really well and know my research proposal and my research findings, and then be able to extrapolate and go beyond those findings to have an intelligent conversation with the committee with whatever they may come up with. I had to think beyond what I got to the implications of what I got for education, for training, for things, for beyond what my paper was really about. Go ahead.
Okay. What do you attribute to your persistence to complete your doctorate?
Oh yeah, I would like to answer that first, but let me go the question before that one.
Please describe your final dissertation defense.
Yeah, well, my data confirmed that there is that your expectations are self-fulfilling prophecies. So whatever you're thinking are self-fulfilling prophecies. If you think that there is a racial bias in between teachers and students in their based on their expectations and their expectations for student achievement related to their race, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that. But think about it. Don't you pretty much always get what you expect? There are cases when you don't. But if I expect my son is going to support me in what I'm doing, that's what I'm going to get. If I expect the other son is not so inclined, he comes up with excuses as to why he can't help me and come out and help me with my work, that's what I'm usually going to get. I could be surprised here or there. So your expectations and that's why even when I've read this before, whatever hypothesis you set up for your work usually is fulfilled, usually is satisfied. So presenting a hypothesis is what you expect is going to happen. You very often it has an influence psychologically or otherwise. It's not a tangible influence, but it does have an influence on what you get, the outcome that you get. That's not always the case. I look at science fair projects at Sallie Howard all the time. Students set up an hypothesis. I think that powdered carbon is going to filter the water much nicer than charcoal carbon, and they don't know what they're going to get, but they get whatever they get. But when you're invested in an hypothesis, usually there is some underlying intangible kind of influence that's operating that is not well understood, but that has an impact on it. So in my defense, I got what I expected. Okay. I expected that there would be a racial factor in student achievement. Okay, yes. Because this is the world we live in. That's why I expected that. When you go to the store, the people in the department store will follow you. They will track you because you're black. They're not tracking white men. They're not tracking white women. They're tracking you because you're black. There's a racial bias in the fabric of this country from the very beginning until now and until forever and ever, amen. Yes. Until that changes. Right. So, of course I expected, that was my expectation, that the teachers, whether they were black or white, didn't matter the race of the teacher, it mattered the race of the student. Wow. Yeah. So, that's what I got in my outcomes. So that was your question. How did I defend it? Yes. My conclusion was the data supported my hypothesis. Okay. And the last question?
To what do you attribute your persistence to complete your doctorate?
I didn't have anything else to do. I know I hate that sounds so petty, so small. But nobody was asking me to marry them. I didn't have options like that. And that's really why I hate to admit it, but let's tell the truth and shame the devil. I went to graduate school because if somebody had offered to say, let's get married and move out to California, I would have done that instead of going to graduate school, honestly. I didn't have a great passion. I'm going to be a doctor. Nah. When I graduated from college, I had these opportunities to go to Michigan. I think Howard University had also accepted me. But I got a scholarship to go to Michigan. So I went there waiting for something else to happen. I'm here and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my work. But if something better comes along in the meantime, in these next 4 years, God knows I'm going to go for the better thing. I'm going for marriage and the family. That's really what I wanted, was marriage and the family. So it never happened. It just never happened. And then when it did happen, it failed. And then again, the second time it failed. So I said, okay, that's not my lot in life. But I'm just being honest about it. It was so much not my ambition that when I graduated with that PhD out there in Michigan, I didn't even stay for the march. I didn't stay for the graduation ceremony. Wow. I took my paper and I left. Wow. I didn't even invite my family to come and see the graduation. Wow. I said, we've been through graduation already. Why bring them out? Why put that kind of burden on them to fly out to Michigan, the family, when we've already, celebrated the graduation from Bennett College 4 or 5 years earlier. And that was a big deal, graduated from college and at Bennett and all that. And they were right here, and it was right here in Greensboro, so that wasn't going to be a burden to them. And I thought, I've celebrated graduations. I marched for the graduations before. I don't have to do that now. I got it and I kept on going. I regret that.
You regret it?
I do regret that. I do. I mean, I'm not actively regretting it any longer, but as the years passed, I said, I should have done that. It would have meant more to me, probably, than it did after I got it. I said, okay, I got it. Let's keep going.
Ambition.
Yeah. I wasn't that ambitious to get that degree. That did not drive me. What persisted was simply that I'm on the path, I'm doing it, and might as well finish it. Might as well.
Summary. Looking back across your whole doctoral journey, what were your greatest challenges?
Okay, I'm repeating myself.
Right.
That dissertation.
Okay.
Because it was the self-discipline was required. And I don't think I'm any different from anybody else. Yeah. There may be a few people out there that are, go-getters. I have a daughter like that. My oldest daughter is like that. You never have to say, when are you going to... She is a consummate professional, and she is working. And she did that when she was in high school. Are you from Wilson?
Yes, ma'am.
What school did you graduate from?
I'm at Fight.
You went to Fight, okay.
Mm-hmm.
They graduated. I have 3. But anyway, she would come home from school, get her homework done, go to her room. The other 2 kids, she was the oldest, the other 2, just right behind them by a year in stair steps, they'd be in there watching TV, having fun, talking. She'd be in her room doing her science experiments, writing up her science experiments. That's what she would do. So some people are like that. Mm-hmm. Some people are all about the business because somehow they enjoy it. They don't want to get behind. Mm-hmm. They got all that running there. Not that they're so stressed out, but that's just who they are. Mm-hmm. They like to they like to get their work done and not be behind and not be pressed and pressured and all of that. That's who she is to this day. See, so I'm not saying that everybody has to go through the challenge of self-discipline. But I know most of the people that I've collected, there were 15 black students accepted at the University of Michigan the year that I entered for the PhD program. 15. Michigan has a history of having the largest number of black graduates in their PhD programs. I don't care what program it is. Not just psychology, any program. And Ohio State is a second. They compete. Michigan and Ohio, they're competitive, but they both back in the, I guess you would say the 60s and 70s, they really pushed, and they admitted tons more black students into their PhD programs than any than any university in the country.
Do you know the reason for that, or just off the top?
Just that was the diversity, the commitment to diversity,
Okay.
all of that. They took that was a real thing.
Okay.
That was a real thing. It wasn't just lip service. Their mouth is because they did support these students. And I was just 1 year. I mean, my class wasn't the only class before or after that had this large number. So this was a pattern.
Okay.
This is a pattern that they've been doing, and I don't know if they're still doing it because I've totally lost contact with them. We did support these students, and I was just 1 year. I mean, my class wasn't the only class before or after that had this large number. So this was a pattern.
Okay.
This is a pattern that they've been doing, and I don't know if they're still doing it because I've totally lost contact with them.
Okay. What supports or strategies do you attribute to your success?
Good question.
I love that.
Good question. My success, I have to say, looking back on it, just the will of God. He has a plan for everybody's life, whether we know it or not, and we can fall into it, unconsciously even. It's not like, oh, God had this for me. I couldn't say that. But looking back on it, it's a plan. I mean, we're all living out. Even this being here at Sally V. Howard and starting this school was never an idea of mine. I told you, I'm a psychologist. I'm not an educator. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an administrator. I'm supposed to be spending my professional life working as a child psychologist, having a practice, maybe working in a school. That was what I went to school for, from undergraduate to graduate school. So this was not a path of mine. So when I came in contact with Sally V. Howard, my whole life changed. I came in contact with her in 1986 when I moved home. This is home for me. I'm from here. I went to Darden High School, class of 65. So then, everything kind of shifted from that point on. And now I can see that was my destiny. I can see this was my destiny. And then, of course, everything that happened prior to that point of contact led to it. I wasn't coming back to North Carolina. I was living in California. And I wasn't coming back to North Carolina, not because I hated it, because I loved my hometown. And my hometown got me started and ushered me on my way in life. It was all black then. It wasn't integrated. So, that was my support. So, not that I didn't want to come, but I just never imagined that I could come and be a professional person here. Because at that time, those jobs were not available in this area. And so it was like a disappointment. I almost felt like I had failed having to come back because of a failed marriage. I came back because of a failed marriage. And I was in a desperate, despairing position at that time. Broke, busted, and disgusted, I think is how we say it.
Right.
Yeah, I was in despair for sure. And so all of that, all of the events that led to me getting to that low place in life, and then having to come home, having no other place to go. And you don't want to go any other place because you're looking for some nurturing, you're looking for some safety, you're looking for some, you're looking for a place that you can rest and regroup yourself and go forward the next time, go forward from there. So all of the events leading up to that moment, to that event and causing me to come here, that was all preparing and equipping me for coming here, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And putting me in the position that I was in, and then meeting Sally V. Howard, who took me under her wing, brought life back to me, restored my confidence, restored my selfhood, and more, and more than that. So that's why I'm saying your question was,
It was what supports the strategy
Yeah.
do you attribute to your success?
yeah. So I have to say first the will of God. I could claim some things myself, but it really won't be the truth so much. Hello. Okay, that took too long to get to the phone. But yeah, I think it's a divine plan of God.
But do you think your doctoral degree in your profession is what it's giving you the competitive edge?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, no question about it. Listen, a college education, period, undergraduate, graduate, whatever, expands your thinking, expands your horizon. It opens you up to a much broader view and perspective of life, because you've come in contact with people you would have never come in contact with. You've been exposed to ideas and experiences you cannot get by staying in the same hometown you grew up in. Right. You can't get that. You're narrow, your vision, your focus, your perspective is narrow if you haven't been exposed to a bigger, more expansive reality. And so going to college, even if it's just college, doesn't have to be a PhD, you're a different person. You're a bigger, you're broader, your scope, your perspective is so much broader. You're more, I like to say you're not narrow-minded. You can still be if you want to be, a right-wing conservative. You can still be whoever you want to be, but more than likely, your experience by being exposed to a whole world. When you're in your little hometown, you might be a big fish in a little pond, and you think you are that and a bag of chips, arrogant, this, that, and you go to a college, and you find out that, oh my God, these people know more. They're better. They can talk better than I can. They look better than I do. They make better grades than I do. What happened here? So that college experience, and I guess it doesn't always just have to be college, but that's one of the places that you just become a bigger person, your perspective changes. You're not narrow-minded, because now you've seen quite a few things, experienced quite a few things that shape and mold you into who you can become.
Please describe the roles of your family and peers during the doctoral process.
Oh yeah, invaluable. I want to make my mama proud. I'm not going to leave Wilson area, North Carolina, and go to a way away from the world, way away from my family, and mess up. That's always something most people feel. So the role that they played was to just give me encouragement, I suppose. I was a grown woman now. Remember, I was 21 when I left college, so I was able to be self-supporting, independent, and all that. I didn't need them for anything. I had a job. The university gave me a research assistantship. I had an apartment. I didn't need them for anything like that. The role that they played is just they're in my corner.
What can individuals do to ensure they are able to persist to completion? Someone like myself.
Oh, yeah. What can you do to ensure? Well, I think it goes back to that. I think it goes back to that self-discipline, or even just having a made-up mind. I told you I didn't have a made-up mind. I wasn't ambitious. I just was following my lead at that time, But if I were ambitious, I would. I don't know what your case is. I don't know what would be the holdup for you. But I know it's going to take discipline, self-discipline, to just keep on the path. And I guess it also you have to have faith and all that too. But I think it's just, I made up my mind that I'm going to get this thing, and I'm just going to get it.
What can institutions do to foster persistence in doctoral students?
One thing they could do, they could make you aware of that right from the get-go. I think that, for example, Dr. Grandison and Bennett made us aware right in the freshman orientation in psychology, you are not a psychologist getting an undergraduate degree. You will have to get an advanced degree. He said that from the get-go. And therefore, why bother to come into this program if it's not your intention to continue towards an advanced degree? He was even saying master's, not necessarily a PhD. So if the institution would be clear and program them to know that it takes discipline. There will come a point when nobody's going to call you to class, when you're not going to get a grade for coming, where you're not going to have a test to take. There's going to come that time, and that's going to be the biggest portion of your program. You're going to finish your classwork in 2 years, or a year, 2 years, or 3 in the case of a PhD. The rest of it is totally on you. So, most of us procrastinate. Most of us, put things aside and all that. So just helping the person to realize what it will take to end up with this degree.
Final words of advice do you have for individuals contemplating beginning a doctoral degree with regards to persisting through coursework and a dissertation?
Yeah. Well, advice one is to get to the right program. Get into the right program. When you get into a program that's going to require that you have to prove yourself, that's one thing I can say. If I had been in a program where I had to prove myself, it would have been much harder. Okay. Because it would have fulfilled exactly what I thought I was going to enter coming out of Bennett College, black all-girls institution. I'm thinking I'm going to have to burn the oil at both ends, because I'm not prepared like